Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto Manga chapter review. This one's going to be for chapter 26, which is called Gift. And overall I liked the chapter. I think my only complaint would be the thing I've been saying in most of these, is that I think the monthly format of this still doesn't work all that great. It still feels like it's kind of too slowly paced. In comparison to what this probably would be if it was a weekly manga. Just like with this chapter specifically, I think it's mainly the issue of like, not too much happened. I think there's maybe a little bit more you can look into with some of the scenes, but in general it was just this idea of like a bunch of scenes alluding to the fact that Naruto is like watching Kawaki and you're not really being exactly sure what exactly that means. And then the scene of him actually bringing him home and it being like, oh, you're going to live here. And it just kind of felt that they drew out the whole, gimmick of the chapter, which was that Kawaki is coming to live with Naruto at home, a little too long. And I think it would have worked better in the weekly format rather than kind of this monthly one where they felt like, oh, this is all the chapter needs to be about, instead of like anything else with maybe like a little bit of a Kawaki backstory kind of stuff at the start. Not to say that the chapter was bad or they like overly wasted time. I just feel it's a case of it felt like we got maybe like the equivalent of like 2 chapters here rather than like 4 or 5, which you'd expect from like a monthly thing, especially because I think we've been waiting like 5 or 6 weeks for this chapter rather than 4 because of some Japanese holiday stuff. So yeah, like getting that out of the way, the whole format stuff, getting into the details of the chapter. I do think that the opening scene stuff was actually really interesting, kind of showing Jigen and Kawaki, and seemingly early in Kawaki being somewhat part of the whole karma thing. And again, Jigen referring to it like, when we like truly become father and son, I'll give you a gift. Now, they showed his hand, but I don't think they made it massively clear if he had the karma mark at this point in time or not, or if the gift is directly referring to the karma. I think you could just about make it out that like maybe he didn't have it at this point, and I think the way the panel was drawn was trying to make it seem that like, oh, he's touching that hand, so that's what he's referring to. Other than that, the whole idea of there being these kind of other kids in these kind of bag-like things that are being like pumped with something is kind of like, is this what Kawaki goes through? Is this what turns him into the whole, like, he is a scientific ninja tool, or he has these kind of nano ninja tool type things inside him which alter his cells, as is kind of explained a little later on? Is that what's happening to these people? And potentially Kawaki is like the first one to fully take on all of these upgrades without actually dying or something like that. We also get introduced to one other guy who seems to be in charge of this on the kind of scientific end. Don't know really what to make of him right now. He didn't really say all that much, but interesting enough, and it seems like it's some sort of a traumatic thing to Kawaki based on the fact that he kind of was shocked when he woke up. So that to me says that like obviously Kawaki isn't a direct like member of Kara, but that he is probably reluctantly part of this because of some connection with Jigen, but hates to a degree what actually happened to him, which could be setting up a really interesting arc with Kawaki given what they do in this chapter. After that, we very much kind of do this kind of transition where in this chapter, like, Naruto is basically the main character, which is really cool to see, just to get a pretty big focus on Naruto throughout all of this chapter, to see his approach to dealing with Kawaki being brought back to the village, and the different discussions he has with Shikamaru about this, then with the other Kage, and then at home having to explain it to Boruto. The stuff with Shikamaru I thought was quite interesting, in that obviously you initially get this moment of Kawaki goes to escape, but Shikamaru keeps him there with the shadow possession, and Naruto just has to explain to him that, you're safe here, like, we're not trying to do anything to you, we're not really going to interrogate you about this stuff. and just making it, trying to make him sort of at ease, and then we kind of get the explanation that from Shikamaru that, oh, why are you doing this? Like, it's a bit weird that the Hokage is the one who's like babysitting Kawaki, and initially kind of feeling just like you're going to spend a lot of time just kind of monitoring him, but where is he actually going to be staying? And they kind of keep it until like towards the end of the chapter that it's actually in Naruto's house. But I did like the Shikamaru Naruto sort of I wouldn't quite call it an argument, but it was kind of like Shikamaru presenting, I suppose, the opposite opinion to all of this, being more pragmatic about the situation, whereas Naruto, of course, is going to take the more empathetic kind of feelings focused kind of opinion on things, of which I like that in a way it shows this sort of shift in the ninja world, where I think before everyone was more similar to Shikamaru, with making these really hard decisions that would have a bad impact on people, whereas now it seems like Naruto has sort of prompted a shift in most of the key world leaders, in that all of the Kage end up agreeing with him, not just because, oh, we'll agree with Naruto, but because they fundamentally understand the point that Naruto's making of, like, we can't, in a way, create more Jinchurikis, not just the scientific nature of how, like, a tail beast is put into a person, but in terms of what being isolated actually does to someone. And they kind of brought that up as a pretty notable kind of point in this episode. Naruto mentioning it to Shikamaru again, how it felt to be isolated like that, and all of the Kage understanding it, because of course Gaara, former Jinchuriki, the Raikage, of course, knows because of Killer Bee, still being a Jinchuriki, so he has kind of good experience with that. And then the others get the point of, like, nowadays they can't just make some sort of a harsh decision to, like, imprison this kid just because they don't know much about him. So they agree with Naruto's idea that he will watch over Kawaki, and basically monitor him, but also do it in such a way where it is still him being given, like, some degree of freedom, so he doesn't feel isolated and actually feels like a home and might open up about it. The other point that they make here is that also Kawaki living with Naruto will help because Boruto will be around, and those Boruto and Kawaki might be able to connect somehow, and that might explain some stuff about the karma mark, which I believe is also from previous chapters. The reason why Kara are sort of willing to let the Leaf Village take Kawaki for now, because they also want to see what happens when the two karma marks are, like, around each other for a while. So I really do feel that they're probably setting up that this is Kawaki in the Leaf Village for a good while. I don't really see them activating some sort of a plot in, like, a chapter or two where he gets taken away. I think what they're doing here is they're using this to, I suppose, in a way, soften Kawaki as a character, so that he will, to some degree, care about the village, and then they'll do something that kind of has to kind of rip him away at some point. Now, how long exactly that takes, I'm not entirely sure, but just the setup that, like, he's living with Boruto now, I assume eventually there'll be a breakthrough and those two will become, to a degree, like brothers, which will make the fact that there is some sort of a big betrayal coming and Kawaki does stuff, obviously a good bit into the future, all the more tragic, given that they seem to be eventually ultimately building to something. Now, they don't have to do that. They could just keep Boruto and Kawaki antagonistic against each other for the entire time, but I don't think they will, just because they're, like, their issues with each other here are just that basically Boruto is frustrated with the fact that Kawaki is so rude primarily. He honestly does want to know why he has the same mark as he does and what's up with him, but he's so rude and kind of hard to get, like, talked to, that's why Boruto doesn't like Kawaki. And then Kawaki, I think, is just frustrated by the fact that kind of out of nowhere suddenly Boruto just has all of this stuff that he has, like, the same powers as him and he doesn't know why. So I think eventually we'll see some sort of an interesting breakthrough and those two will probably end up getting along really well. Will we see Kawaki go on Leaf Village missions with, like, Team 7 and stuff like that? They probably will have to do that at some point. But I assume that will take a little bit until they like Naruto deems that like, okay, Kawaki can be trusted. He sort of accepted his place in the village for now, and we'll see where we go. But that I don't really know. I think that's the way you sort of have to go, in that I assume they'll want to do something similar to like Sasuke leaving the village with Kawaki at some stage. Like he grows to develop trust with people and like it there, but then something happens and he has to leave for some reason. Because eventually I think once, I suppose, Kara get the information that they want, they're just going to want to take Kawaki back to do what they want to do with him, what the original plan was, basically, in all of this. Why he's the vessel, this gift thing they're talking about, once he's not empty anymore, and all these other different things they're talking about. As for, I suppose, Naruto bringing him back to his house, I really like that sequence of just Naruto giving him more or less complete freedom, but as he runs off, he just kind of like appears in front of him and is just like, okay, you tried to run away, but the house is over here. That's enough exercise for now. We'll go back home before anything else happens. And he's just really relaxed about it and extremely confident, and he's kind of subtly, in a way, showing Kawaki how kind of powerful he is. That Naruto, of course, at times can come across as a complete goofball, who I think even references that earlier in the chapter, like, I don't look like the leader of the village, do I? But I am. So he's kind of showing that here. And then, especially when they actually get home and they're about to eat, Kawaki takes the first opportunity to like flip the table over in front of Naruto and try to escape, but Naruto just activates his Kurama chakra mode and doesn't do anything with it. He just basically uses it as a display of power, because obviously Kawaki's a ninja to a degree. Do we even know he's a ninja? But he's obviously used skills and stuff like that, so he has some ninja abilities. He can sense the amount of chakra that's coming off Naruto, and he makes the immediate comparison that he gets the impression that Naruto is more powerful than Jigen. Now, whether or not we should take that as a pure power level thing, I'm not sure, because I don't think that is meant to be Naruto using his full power. I think that's Naruto just turning on that mode without going like full 100%. So I still think that Naruto ultimately is still much more powerful than Jigen, but then there's also the idea that maybe Jigen hasn't shown just how powerful he is. But I think within the series and the way it is right now, the idea that you create a villain who is more powerful than Naruto, it's far too early, I think, for that right now. But I like how that just immediately kind of stops all of Kawaki's plans, that he knows that if Naruto ever moved against him, he wouldn't stand a chance at all. Naruto, he already knows Naruto is quicker than him, and now power level wise is beyond him as well. In the process of that happening, we see that he breaks this vase that Himawari made for Hinata. And when Boruto comes home, that's like a key part of the issue between them. That Boruto, of course, is shocked that this guy he doesn't particularly like is here and is going to stay with them. And that annoys him already. But then when he finds out that basically Kawaki is responsible for something negative happening towards his sister, he steps up, and we get to see, Big Brother Boruto really just kind of confront Kawaki over this. And I like that there was a little bit of a softening of Kawaki here, of just him being aware of the situation and being like, yeah, I did just actually do this thing that was pretty rude, like nothing has actually happened to me here. He didn't apologize, but just him saying like, my bad, there was no like ill intent behind it. It was honestly an accident, basically. Still, Boruto's not particularly happy with that, because it wasn't a, I suppose, polite apology. But they do their sort of like greetings towards each other, even though it's again, both of them being somewhat rude to each other. I want to see what the official translation on this is, because like the fan translation was basically like every second word out of Kawaki's mouth is like a swear word, so it's just like I don't really think that's the intent, but I assume translated there's a better way of getting that across without just using bad language every time you need to end a sentence with the character. But just setting up that, like, okay, we're going to be dealing with some issues for the time being of, like, where is, like, are Boruto and Kawaki going to be in the same room, or is Kawaki going to have his own room? Because, like, that could go crazy if they're both in the same room. But it's going to be fun to see how they do this, in that I suspect this is a little bit more of this is a long-term thing, that Kawaki is going to be in the village, living here for a while. And we will probably settle down into doing some missions. Kawaki will have to eventually get on those missions. We'll, I suppose, gradually incorporate some Kara stuff, learning about him. But I think what they're doing here is they're setting up his character interactions with Boruto primarily, but also other characters ahead of ultimately leading towards some sort of a big betrayal moment for him, which we know has to happen at some point. But beyond that, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about in the chapter. There was the moment of getting I suppose the more scientific explanation about how exactly Kawaki's powers work, in that it's not the Kimimaru technique, but it's also not Yugo's technique. They kind of say that, like, there are these, like, microscopic, you know, scientific ninja tools within him, and what they do is that they, like, alter his cells to make his, like, arms be able to either harden or soften, and that's why he's able to do that sort of kind of arm manipulation type stuff that he can do. So they're making it this sort of you know, scientifically manufactured technique rather than, like, a latent ability that he has as such. But I suppose that's why we need to get the explanation on, like, just the vagueness about the way they're talking about those scientific ninja tools, and that it's kind of hard to picture that, like, we consider a scientific ninja tool to be like the jutsu shooter thing, the wristband thing that Boruto wears, or like the special, like, flashbang grenade thing that he got before, or the beam saber thing, the lightsaber sword that he had a few chapters ago. They're obvious, like, you know, technology ninja weapons. So what are these tiny technology ninja weapons that are within Kawaki? It's kind of hard to kind of picture them just by, like, them saying what they are, rather than actually, I suppose, seeing it or getting a more in-depth explanation about what the intent of them is. It is cool, the idea of, like, here is a more tech-focused upgrade that allows someone to basically have abilities that almost look like some of those you know, special techniques, like a Kimimaru or a Yugo or a Keke Genkai. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about this chapter. As I said, overall, I did actually like it. I thought Naruto was probably the MVP of this chapter. I really like getting the extra focus on him. I'm very interested to see where they go from here. The only issue, once again, was that I feel the pacing is still a little slow because of the monthly format, and they probably should make some attempt to kind of speed it up a little bit, but it wasn't too big of an issue. I think there's been worse chapters where it's felt like very little has happened. This one at least actually had what I felt like was a sort of notable, like, this is a key point in the series, Kawaki coming to live for now in the Leaf Village. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this chapter, as well as what I have to say about it. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.